Welcome to Evolve with the Modern Caveman. Ooh,
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Evolve with the Modern Caveman. I'm your host, Gilbert Diaz, most affectionately known as the Modern Caveman. If you're joining us for the first time, let me be the first to welcome you to the evolution. I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, out of your day, and choosing to spend that time with us. See, time is your most valuable asset. I truly, truly believe that, and I emphasize that on almost every single episode. And the fact that you have chosen to spend just a smidget of that time with me, I want you to know that I am truly grateful, and I do not take not a second of that time that you have afforded me for granted. And it is my goal and my intention to use that time wisely and pour as much value as I possibly can into your life to help you evolve into the next best version of yourself. And I intend to do that by sharing with you some of the lessons that I have learned, some of the experiences and stories that I have experienced in my life. Some of the trials and tribulations, the victories and the failures and the mishaps that I have experienced that have helped me and continue to help me on my own evolutionary journey, on my own journey of self development to become the man that God created me to be. That being said, I want you to know that every single one of us is created with greatness. I truly believe that. I believe we are all created with greatness. I believe that we are all embedded with limitless potential. And it is imperative for us to unleash that greatness into the world, to tap into that potential so that we can fully realize the fullness of our purpose, so that we can succeed in the areas that are most valuable to us, and that we can look back on our life when we get to the end of the road. We can look back on it with dignity, joy, and little regret. I want you to remember that you were created with a purpose. And I want you to really remember that, because today, on today's episode, we're going to really dive real deep into that. You were created with a purpose. You are not a coincidence. Uh if you're sitting here for whatever reason, if you're sitting wherever you're at listening to my words and you feel insignificant, if you feel like you are um that you're just existing in this life, that you hold no purpose, I want you to know that you serve a very unique purpose in this life. I believe that it is imperative that you begin to embrace that purpose, that you begin to acknowledge your own worth, your value. And it's my goal and my hope here on this podcast that some of the lessons that I'm able to teach you and relay back to you and share with you can help you realize your own self-worth, your own value, and use that to begin to reshape your story. I believe each and every one of us has a very unique story, a very unique legacy that we are crafting, not for ourselves, but for the people who are walking in our footsteps behind us. The versions of ourselves that are that is existing maybe a week a week ago, right? The version of the people who are versions of yourself who are a week behind your own journey, maybe a month behind your own journey, maybe a year behind your journey. maybe 10 years behind your journey. But because of your story, because of your legacy, because of your blueprint, they are able to learn from you. They are able to grow. They are able to make right decisions and avoid some of the pitfalls that we may have experienced in our own journey. I believe that that our purpose is to serve that story for others to learn from, that blueprint. If you haven't already, definitely check out last week's episode titled Blueprint. That episode was an episode that was very, very dear to my heart. Um, I spoke about my father. I spoke about his own personal journey uh, through addiction, alcoholism, and how he overcame all that and is now celebrating 21 years of sobriety. Um, and how those challenges that he went through helped serve as a blueprint for me, a foundation for me to become the man that I am today. I truly, truly believe that it had it not been for the challenges that my father experienced, those moments of doubt and those dark times where he felt like giving up. If it wasn't for the fact that he overcame those challenges, educated himself, and did it all in front of me. There's something that Ed Milet teaches. He says most children, the way most children learn in life is not by being taught, but by things that are caught. Basically, things we often think that our intelligence is based on the things that are taught to us. But it's the things that we see, the things that we hear, the things that we catch. Those are often the things that are most significant. And the fact that I witness my father overcome his adversities, overcome his struggles, allowed me to overcome the struggles that I experienced in my own personal life, allowed me to understand and know that change is possible, allowed me to craft a future for myself that helps and serves other people to do the same. I want you to know that each and every one of us has that blueprint, has a blueprint that we are crafting. And is imperative that we we become vigilant and we go through this life knowing that vigilant and go through this life aware of who that blueprint, those lessons are going to be passed on to. Those could be your children, your grandchildren, your friends, your family. It could even be people that you don't even know today. People that other people will talk about you to them, right? Sometimes the blueprints may not even have your name on it. The lessons that you leave behind, the experiences that you leave behind for them to read, the stories that you leave behind for them to read, those stories uh may not your name may not last on them. They may be passed down from generation to generation, but you have contributed to those lessons. And for those who often feels insignificant, right? I want you to know that you are like a pebble being thrown into a pond. And when a pebble gets thrown into a pond, it makes ripples. Now you have to decide whether you're going to make a small splash or you're going to make some big waves. It's entirely up to you. And that's what we're all about here, is trying to make some big waves. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about making those big waves, building on top of last week's episode. Like I said, if you haven't checked out last week's episode, Blueprints, check it out. I've mentioned it so many times before on previous episodes that these episodes are kind of layered one on top of the other. So there's some if I teach something today, it often lays the foundation for a future lesson that I'm going to teach in a future episode. So that is definitely the case for last week's episode, Blueprints, and that is that is serving up a foundation for today's episode, in which I want to discuss with you about your purpose. Right? I believe that each and every one of us was created with a very unique purpose. And today I want to break down the three levels of purpose. I believe there's three levels of purpose, and how these these levels of purpose, by understanding it, you can come to a place of embracing your own purpose in life. So many people I often hear go through life saying, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what, and I think often we overcomplicate what purpose means. I truly believe that, especially in this world of self development, um, if you truly want to be successful, your success has to be tied to a purpose. Your success has to be tied to a true meaning, a true why. Why is it that I am doing the things that I'm doing? Now the question is, what is success? Now success looks different from person to person. For some people, success might be monetarily, right? Until they reach a certain monetary figure, they do not feel like they're successful. For other people, it may be a personal achievement, like getting a degree, or getting some kind of position or promotion, or getting some kind of accolade. For other people, it may be even more simple than that. Success for them may be, you know, being able to come home and know when they lay their heads on their bed that they are in a warm home, that they could provide for their children. They could provide food for their children. They could provide shelter for their families. Um, Success often looks like you know uh being able to be a good sibling, a good son or daughter, um a good citizen. Success looks different from person to person. And if we truly want to experience success, and what I mean by experience success, because a lot of people often think, hey, I'm I'm on this journey for success. I'm after this accolade or something like that. And then when they get to that to whatever the end of that road may look, they often find themselves unsatisfied. When If we want to work our way through a satisfying success, we must tie that with a purpose. We must dig it into a really deep why. I truly believe that. Um, a few years ago, I developed something called the 6 steps to success. Um, and in one of those 6 steps, I believe it's maybe step 3, right? Um, one of those, and maybe one day I'll share the 6 steps to success here on this podcast. Maybe that'll be a future episode. Um, and I think I might increase those steps. It might be 7 or even 8 steps. But when I developed it was 6 steps, and one of those steps was to align yourself with a purpose. Figure out exactly what it is that you want to achieve. Number one. and why you want to achieve it. What is the deep emotional meaning that it carries for you? And don't sugarcoat it with something that is very general, right? Don't say, "Hey, I want to have uh this monetary figure. I have this monetary figure in my head, and this is what success looks like for me." And because I want to, I just simply want to be rich, right? No, what's the deep emotional meaning? Why do you want that figure? And after you've answered that why, ask yourself why again. And once you've answered that, ask yourself why again. And get deeper and deeper until you get to a point where you're emotionally moved in a way that you can't turn back. In a way in which you understand that it is now imperative that you achieve this because this is now tied to a purpose. There's something meaningful to it. There's something that I learned from my own mentor, Dean Graziosi, um, which is called Seven Levels Deep. And maybe I'll share that in a future episode. Maybe I'll share it today. I don't know. Let's see how much time. The last couple of episodes I've done were about 45, 50 minutes. So I want to be courteous and respectful of the time that you afforded me. And I don't want to go too long. I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. But he developed something called the seven levels deep. Well, it was actually he didn't develop it. It was taught to him by a psychologist, and it's an exercise that you can start doing today that will. I'll actually divulge it actually right now. It's an exercise that you can start doing today that can help you align yourself not only with your purpose but with your why, your deep emotional reason as to why you are striving for the success that you're striving for. And basically, this is the way it goes. And actually, let me before I get there, I'll explain the story. Dean, when he explained the story to us, he said he was he was in the process of kind of reshaping his coaching program. He wanted to engage his students better. He wanted to make a better impact on their life, greater impact. He wanted his lessons to stick harder, and he wanted to get more results for his students. And he invited a psychologist over, um, and the goal was to try to figure out how they can he can align with them and get into and figure out how he can engage his students better, right? I'm sounding a little redundant here. Anyway, the psychologist says to him, "Have you ever tried seven levels deep?" He said, "No, I've never tried that." He said, "So let's start um with level one. Level one basically is do you want to why have you hired me?" And he thinks a little bit. He says, "Well, I hired you to so that I can engage my students better, so that I can refine my coaching program and I could get the best results out, for my clients." That was a very surface level answer. I said, "Okay, that's level one. Level two, why do you want to get better results for your clients? And why do you and he just basically recited everything he said, but why do you want to do that?" And Dean thought about it again, and he said, "Well, because I want, and I'm kind of just paraphrasing, but you know, I want them to be, successful in their own lives, right?" And then he continues, next level, number three, and the as he goes lower and lower into the levels, the the answers become deeper. And at one point, he thought he can trip him up, and he says, "Oh, legacy! I want to leave behind a legacy." Right? We talked a little bit about legacy in last week's episode, blueprints. Right? I want to leave behind a blueprint. And he said, "Why do you want to leave behind a legacy? What's it? Why is that important to you?" And this by this point, he's about level 4 or 5. He said he didn't know what his answers were for level 5 or 6. He doesn't remember them, but he does remember what level 7 was. He said, because I don't want to go back. I don't want to go backwards. I remember what it felt like to be in this situation. I remember what it felt like to go through this tribulation. And I don't want to go backwards. And the psychologist said, now you found your why. Now you found your purpose. And he said when he got to level 7, he was bawling crying. He was bawling crying. Because that, you know, at the surface, yeah, this is why I want to do it. But the deep reason, the deep meaning, the purpose was to not go backwards. So I challenge you, if you are, if you have anything that you are trying to succeed in life, um, you're trying to pursue in life, I challenge you to take the 7 level deep challenge. I suggest that you do it with a friend. You you have the friend ask you, and definitely like have a handbook. I've done it, and I will attest that after about level 5 or 6, and you get into those deep thoughts as to why, have a tissue box, because you're moving now from the conscious into the subconscious, and you're getting in touch with yourself. You're starting to get to know yourself. So definitely do that, but have somebody read to you the 7 levels deep, somebody that you trust, and go through that exercise, and you will find what your deep why is, your deep meaning is, that will propel you forward. Because once you have enough of that, then you can use that as leverage, so that anytime you may ever get tempted to fall backwards, right? If there's any time that you may be tempted to hang up the dream, you'll always remember that deep why, that deep reason, which is connected to your purpose, which will move you into your success. Okay, so that was a little bit of a side note. But like I said, today we want to talk a little bit about purpose. We want to talk a little bit uh, um about your particular purpose, the 3 levels of purpose, how they impact your life, but not just your life, but everybody else's lives around you. Let's get into it very quickly. Like I said, I'm very conscious of the time today. I don't want to go too long. I said before, set goals that you feel are challenging. So I've set a goal that I feel that is challenging. I maybe have about 15 minutes left in order to achieve that goal. So let's see if I can actually do it. That being said, um, a few years ago, actually no, it was about a year and a half ago. I my community was throwing a kind of a community festival to kind of start off the summer. And when I got to the festival, there was several tents that were in display. Some of them had food on display, music on display, arts and crafts. Some people were selling items. There was a bouncy house for children, and then tucked to the side was a little tent with 2 massage chairs and an elderly couple. Anyways, I was watching my children um bouncing in the bounce house, and my wife caught wind of the tent, and she says, I'm gonna go and get a massage. My wife loves massages. So she said, I'm gonna go get a massage. She goes to the tent, and the woman, the elderly woman, she directs my wife to the chair, gives my wife the massage. My wife gets up, and the elderly man says to my wife, "Who's that man that you're standing with?" And she said, "Well, that's my husband." Now I've been doing the Modern Caveman now for a couple of years, and I've had this hat with my Caveman gear on. So I had the shirt with the logo that said Modern Caveman on it, and he says, "What is that that's written on his shirt and on his hat? I've never seen that before." And she explains to him what the whole Modern Caveman evolution is about self-development and impacting people's lives and helping people evolve into the next best version of themselves, right? And this elderly man says, "That is fantastic. Tell him, tell your husband that I want to give him a free massage." So she calls me over. Now, up until this point, I've never had a massage in my life. Quite frankly, I never understood the benefit of a massage. And I was a little skeptical going in, but I decided, you know what? I'm gonna give this thing a try. I I sit down in the seat, and the old man, he begins to massage me. And as he's massaging me, he's speaking to me. And while he spoke to me, this man didn't realize. I mean, maybe he did, because what he said was so impactful, and maybe he had an inclination of what he was doing here. This man was impacting my life. Now, in last week's episode, um I spoke about a phrase that a friend sent me over a text one day, and I rephrased that phrase, and I wrote it down, and often repeated it to myself. It's been a while since I repeated it to myself, because in last week's episode I actually um misspoke the phrase, and the phrase goes like this: the imprints that we make in life are the blueprints that we leave behind. I'm going to repeat that. The imprints that we make in life are the blueprints that we leave behind. And if you followed last week's episode, you'll know exactly what I mean by that. But we are, each and every one of us, have an imprint on the fabric of this life. Now, like I said before, we have to choose how deep that imprint will go. But whatever that imprint is, that is the legacy, that is the story, that is the blueprint that the person behind us will learn from. And I believe that is the purpose of our life, to leave behind a good story, to leave behind a blueprint. Now, while this man was talking to me, he's and massaging me, he said he 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 told me that him and his wife were massage therapists for NFL football team. His wife used to be the massage therapist for the CEO, and he was the massage therapist for the players. And him and his wife had been in business for over 40 somewhat years, and now they were retired, and now they basically um he basically does massages with one single purpose. He said over his life, he began to learn that us in life, that we in life all have two purposes. Number one is to serve, and number two is to receive. And we all have that. He said the fact he said he didn't believe in coincidences. The fact that I was sitting on his massage chair, massaging him on that very moment, he believed that he was serving his purpose, that he was serving me. And whichever way possible, maybe that was to make me feel better. Maybe, physically. Maybe it was the conversation, maybe to enlighten me. Whatever it is, he was serving a purpose. And I was meant to receive. Now, that being said, now that we understand our roles at that moment, he said he became now, he's now conscious that of every interaction that he has because he knows that he's meant to serve. And he wants to know that when he encounters someone in life, that he serves them to the very best of his ability so that he can make that imprint, so that he can uh, build that story, leave behind that blueprint, that foundation that they can build on. And I'm just listening to this, man. For years, I've been teaching that our purpose in life is to serve. I've been teaching that for years, but I never, ever, um, I never considered that part of my purpose was to receive. So we're gonna get real quick into the three levels, right? Number one, I believe at the very top, our purpose is strictly spiritual. I truly believe that we have an ultimate purpose that is ordained by God, and that purpose is to serve and worship God. That is my belief. I believe that we were designed with the purpose to worship Him, and we can only truly get to the we can only get to true worship when we have renewed our minds, that we have transformed and renewed our minds. That's Romans 12. So that we can test his will and that we can do his will. And so that his will can fulfill his plans and his purpose for our life, which is to transform our life to become a perfect reflection of him. Now, as a preacher and as a believer, um, I truly believe this is the ultimate purpose. As you know, there may be somebody who may be listening here who may not necessarily agree with that, and that's okay. But I as somebody who uh who is deeply devoted to my faith, I had to mention that to be the very top, what I believe is the very top of of I guess of the pyramid of purpose. We have an ultimate purpose to serve God, to worship him so that he can fulfill his greatness, he can fulfill his plan and his will in our life to transform us into his likeness and into his into his image. Okay? That's number 1. That's at the very top. Take that information um you know with as you will, and if, like I said, if you're not a believer or you don't believe in the faith that I believe in, um you know just consider it. That's all I ask. Okay, number 2, right? And this is what the old man giving me a massage was alluding to. We all have a general purpose, right? Number 1, we have a, like I said, is to serve God. Number 2 is to serve one another. And then to receive from one another. So there's the general purpose to serve and receive from one another. Your service to one another includes an element of selfishness, though. so that you can build yourself up to serve others selflessly. And we talked about that in the episode selfishly selfless. Definitely check that out. But the main idea here is you have to be selfish. Build yourself up so that you can pour into others, okay? But we have a general purpose to serve one another as well as to receive one another. And so many people uh where often people get stuck in life is at the receiving end, right? They're big on I'm gonna pour into other people's lives. They're big on I'm gonna teach other people things. But once you stop receiving, once you stop learning, this is why I emphasize this on every episode. I am a student of life. There may be something that you, even as a beginner, if you're a beginner on this journey to greatness, right? This may be something that I can learn from you. I truly believe I can learn from anybody. And the moment I stop being a student, the moment I stop learning, that's when I have failed as a person. That's when I have failed on this journey. So we have a purpose to serve one another. So as long as you are serving someone, you are fulfilling a purpose. As long as you are receiving and continuously learning, you are serving your purpose, right? And then on the third level, we have individual purposes, right? Individual purposes, same thing, serve and receive, right? We serve many purposes for many different reasons and to many different people. Each purpose is unique to the people, places, and things that we serve. We may serve multiple purposes to a single person. So many people, you know, I hear so many people overcomplicate what purpose is in their life. When they think about purpose, they think about what is my job, right? That's often what people think. I'm trying to figure out what my purpose is, and they confuse that with an occupation. Let me let you know about something. When you are at the end of your life, and I really believe that everything becomes more simplified at the end of your life, right? When you're at the end of your life and you're looking back, you're not really thinking about the occupation that you had, your employment. You may not even be thinking about certain accolades. What you're really considering, right, is is if you served your purpose in whatever you did, whether it's being your job or in your relationships, in your community, whatever it may be, did you serve your purpose? That's what you will be considering at the end of your life. Did you give it your all? Did you swing for the fences? Did you push yourself to become the person that you were meant to be? Right? And oftentimes people confuse purpose, right? And they think that they are only designed with one purpose. I'm here to tell you that you may serve multiple purposes. And you may serve multiple purposes for for even one person. For my children, I serve the purpose of being their father, right? I serve the purpose of being their father, raising them up, guiding them, teaching them how to navigate this life, raising them up to be functional human beings and functional citizens to our society, right? But to my wife, I serve a completely different purpose. I serve the purpose of being her husband. To my parents, I serve the purpose of being their son. To my church, I serve the purpose of being a minister or a brother in Christ. To my community, I serve a different purpose. To my friends, I may serve a different purpose. Even on this podcast, I serve a different purpose for you. We have multiple purposes. And like I said, we may have different purposes, multiple purpose for a single person. So I may serve a purpose for multiple things in your life. Maybe not everything, right? But there may be certain things that you may be going through, multiple things that you may be going through that I serve that purpose for, right? I could be a father figure to somebody. I can also be a teacher to them. I can also be a friend to them. I could serve them at different capacities. So consider that when you're thinking about your purpose in life, think about number one, who does it serve? Because it all boils down to service at the end of the day, right? Who does it serve? Are you serving others? And if so, in what way? At what capacity? You may be serving them at multiple. You will probably find that you're serving your community in multiple different facets, people in multiple different facets, your environment in multiple different facets, because we all have multiple purposes in life, right? Now, these purposes, right? These individual purposes could be broken down to two things, right? Transactional purposes and temporary purposes. Now, what does that mean? A transactional purpose is the give or receive that we talked about before, right? We pour into someone's life and they receive, right? And they can pour back into our life with something they have of value and we receive it, which builds each other up to serve each other at a greater capacity. Okay. So that is a transactional purpose. I pour into someone, they pour back into me. There's a transaction, right? That's a transactional purpose. Temporary purpose is this may include a simple act or an event or a long-term service, but ultimately that a service that comes to an end. What do I mean by that? This man that I met um at the community festival. This man, I may never see him again in life. Maybe that may have been the only time, but he served his purpose at that very moment. It was a temporary purpose. It's not. It wasn't there to last, forever. Right. It was a momentary act, temporary temporary act that served this purpose, that imprinted in my life so that I can leave now behind the blueprint today on this podcast. So there, like I said, there are transactional purposes and there are temporary purposes. So if you break down the pyramid at the very top, we have the ultimate purpose, which I believe is to serve and worship God, right? That is at the very top. Right there in the middle, we have a general purpose, which is just to serve and receive from one another. And then at the very bottom, right, we get more specific, right? We have individual purposes, multiple purposes for multiple people, places, and things. And then we break that down a little bit further, right? It could be broken down into transactional or temporary purposes. Now, if you want to work your way up, right, these transactional and temporary purposes that we serve and receive from fulfill our individual purposes. Our individual purposes fulfill our general purposes, and our general purposes ultimately fulfills our spiritual purpose. So you can see how this kind of works for one another and why service is at um the very center of purpose. I truly believe that service and receiving. um so if there's anybody listening here and you have anything to add to that, please feel free to send me a DM at Modern Caveman's Club on Instagram. Let me know your thoughts on this podcast, on this episode, on this lesson. Let me know if you would like to include anything on these levels, or if you have something to add to this. I Like I said before, as someone who truly believes in purpose, that we are all created with purpose, I am living into my purpose to receive from you. So definitely share with me. I'm willing to learn. I want to know more. But I hope that what I've taught you today can help simplify purpose in a much more easier way, right? Like I said, we're not our purpose does not necessarily tie to our occupation. Our purpose does not necessarily tie to our passions. Our purpose has a deep reason, a deep meaning. And it is the thing that when we look back in our life, we look back on with pride. Okay? Our purpose ultimately is what transforms us into the people that we are meant to be. Like I said before, if you want to experience true success in your life, you must tie your success, satisfying success, with a purpose. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? Okay. Let me know if there's anything you would like to add to that. I appreciate um, everybody who has listened in on this episode. Listen, if um, if you found value in this episode, this is what I ask of you. Very simple. Share this episode with a friend. Share this episode with a friend, a family member, or anybody that you think would benefit from any of the lessons that I have taught thus far. So definitely pour back that value. Maybe that is your purpose, your simple act of of purpose for somebody else's life. I definitely challenge you. Thank you so much. And I challenge you to continue to walk in your purpose, find out the why, for the reasons, the deep to figure out the deep reasons to why you are doing the things that you are doing. And as always, keep evolving the modern caveman way.